Welcome back. We've all heard the fairy tales. You find the perfect person, you get married, and then you live happily ever after. But if you've been married for more than 5 minutes, you probably realize that reality looks a little different, maybe even a lot different. Today, I want to talk about something that might sound a bit shocking at first, but it could actually save your relationship. We need to face the gritty reality that marriage isn't primarily for your happiness, it is for your holiness. Now, before you click away thinking this sounds like a drag, hear me out. We usually enter marriage with a consumer mindset. We ask ourselves what this person can do for us, how they make us feel, how they complete our lives. But that's a heavy burden to put on another imperfect human being. When we expect our spouse to be the source of our constant joy, we are setting ourselves up for immense disappointment. The truth is that marriage is less like a soft pillow. It is more like a mirror. It is the most intense long-term relationship you will ever have. Because of that, it has this uncanny way of showing you exactly who you are. It reveals your selfishness, your impatience, your pride. It exposes flaws in ways that being single never could. Think about it. When you're alone, it's easy to think you're a pretty patient person. You have your own schedule, your own way of doing things. No one is there to interrupt your flow, but try sharing a bathroom, a bank account, a bed. Try doing that with someone who does everything differently than you do. Suddenly, the patience wears thin. You discover something unsettling. You aren't as chill as you thought. But this friction is not a failure. It is proof the marriage is working. It is doing its job. It is exposing the rough edges of your character so they can be smoothed out over time. When we say marriage is for your holiness, we mean it's a tool for transformation. It's a refining process. This aligns perfectly with what Christian thinkers have long observed. God created marriage to be a sacred covenant. It was never meant to be a transactional consumer contract. In Genesis, God calls the spouse a helper, not a servant to your happiness, but an ally in your spiritual formation. Holiness in this sense isn't about being perfect. It's about becoming a more loving, more selfless version of yourself. It's about learning how to love someone even when they're not being particularly lovable. That's where the real growth happens. If you only love your spouse when they're making you happy, that's easy. Anyone can do that. But staying committed and choosing kindness when you're tired, annoyed, or feeling unappreciated, that takes real character. That is the grit that builds something lasting. Imagine if we shifted our perspective entirely. Instead of asking, "Why isn't my spouse making me happy right now?" What if we asked, "What is this situation trying to teach me about myself?" Maybe that annoying habit of theirs is an opportunity for you to practice grace. Maybe that disagreement is a chance for you to practice humility instead of needing to be right all the time. When you stop chasing the fleeting feeling of happiness as your primary goal, something amazing happens. You start to build a foundation of trust and resilience. You realize that you're in a partnership where both people are committed to helping each other grow into the best versions of themselves. This doesn't mean marriage should be miserable. It does not mean you should accept toxic or abusive behavior. Not at all. But it does mean that the struggles are often the very things that produce the most beauty. In fact, the paradox is that when you focus on growth and holiness, you often find a deeper, more lasting kind of happiness than you ever could have found by chasing it directly. It's the difference between a cheap thrill and a profound sense of peace. You stop looking at your spouse as a vending machine for your needs. You start seeing them as a partner on a long, difficult, but rewarding journey. You learn to forgive quickly because you realize how much you need to be forgiven. You learn to serve because you see how much it strengthens the bond between you. Think about the most inspiring couples you know, the ones who have been together for 50 years. If you ask them, they'll tell you it wasn't always easy. They'll tell you about the seasons of struggle and the times they had to choose to stay when they wanted to leave. What they have now isn't just the result of luck, it's the result of being refined by each other. They've gone through the fire and come out more beautiful because they allowed the challenges to change them for the better. So, if you're going through a season where things feel difficult or the spark feels a bit dim, don't panic. You're not necessarily doing it wrong. You might just be in the middle of the refining process. Marriage is hard because it's meant to change us. It's meant to break down our egos so that something more beautiful can be built in its place. It's a long-haul commitment that requires us to show up every day, even when we don't feel like it. But the result of that hard work is a soul that is more compassionate, more enduring, and more capable of true love. In the end, the gritty reality of marriage is actually a beautiful gift. It's an invitation to step out of our self-centeredness and into a life of sacrifice and meaning. It's not always pretty, and it's certainly not always easy, but it is worth it. By embracing the idea that your marriage is there to make you holy, you take the pressure off your spouse to be your everything. you gain the freedom to love them as they are, while you both work on becoming who you were meant to be. It changes the way you see every argument and every irritation. It turns your home into a workshop for the soul. Marriage isn't a playground for our egos. It is a workshop for our souls. If this gritty perspective challenged how you view your relationship, let's start an honest, respectful conversation in the comments below. How can we better embrace refinement over resentment in our homes? Let's build a space focused on truth, not temporary thrills. Consider subscribing to walk this journey with us.